Hello, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod and another episode of Lightspeed, which will, as of this very moment, be called the Celebration Recap Day 4, and not necessarily numbered like the other Lightspeed episodes that we've had in the past. Although if we did number them, I think we've almost hit 30 at this point. You can basically treat them like Star Wars news and headlines in under 15 minutes. Like it's like opening up a podcast version of a Star Wars newspaper, if you will. So Final Celebration 2023 Day 4 just hit today, this morning at some crazy hour on the Pacific coast here in North America, as it's taking place in London right now. We've got a few headlines to go over, including 3 panels that happened today, 3 main panels, although there was a few others kind of behind the scenes, which they did show in the recap later in the day. They kicked things off with an announcement that the Bad Batch Season 2 panel would happen today, along with the Star Wars Visions panel, Volume 2, highlighting the Volume 2 creators and studios alike, and a Doug Chiang panel, leader of a lot of the concepts and designing Star Wars that you see for the last 2 decades now, since the prequels. And designing The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan Kenobi. He hosted that panel as well. At the Star Wars Bad Batch Season 2 panel, we got word that Commander Cody will return in Season 3, and the Bad Batch will be back for a 3rd and final season before the show is brought to a close. It doesn't sound like Tech is going to come back at this point. That's just my thoughts, but the way that they were talking about him on stage gave me the feeling like he wasn't going to see his return to screen. Ashley Eckstein was brought to stage by Kristen Baber to talk about Ahsoka and her time on set. I don't think she has any cameo appearances in the live-action show, but I guess we'll have to find out and see. Maybe she's telling a white lie there. It's worth noting that at the Star Wars Visions panel, we also got a sneak peek at the upcoming Volume 2 in the form of a trailer. So let's check out that trailer, shall we?
Like you here.
I saw it myself. She has special powers.
Can you get your porta potty off the starting line?
She's a total... Exactly.
Don't be afraid.
May the Force be with you.
It's showtime.
Whoa.
The storm is approaching.
I can fight them. I'm strong enough now.
No one is stronger than them.
We can beat them.
No!
You there! Hold it!
We cannot choose where our calling takes us. Only whether or not to answer.
All right, so Star Wars Visions Volume 2 comes out later this year. And among other things, we had so many great appearances from people on the Celebration stage. But actually, right before that, Cartoon Saloon, Punk Robot, MR Studio, Ardman, Triggerfish, Dart Chatio, El Giro Studios and 88 Pictures, along with Studio La Chate, are all going to be taking part in Volume 2, the collaboration project for Star Wars Visions. And the reaction to the first volume was publicly, just blew everyone away. So a lot of anime fans looking forward to Season 2, and these new set of studios working to do stories in the Star Wars universe. All, of course, not canon, but just taking that Star Wars IP and being able to do whatever the heck they want with it. It is very interesting to see kind of some interesting stories that take place, some interesting concepts. And I think that's one of the coolest things about Star Wars Visions so far, is that they've been a really interesting concept. There's been some really standout things that I would love to see make its way into canon at some point, just thanks to Star Wars Visions. And the Tatooine Rhapsody is maybe one of them. But yeah, it's looking cool. It's looking cool, and lots of great visual appeal, eye candy in this trailer for Season 2, along with the music. The music is fantastic. All right, so among other things, guests Michelle Ang, D. Bradley Baker, they came to the stage, the celebration stage, to talk about Omega and the clones in the Bad Batch. Showrunners of the Bad Batch were brought out as well at 1 hour and 43 minutes into the live stream. Mike Quinn, who plays Nine Nub, he's an animator and a animatronic engineer and just about everything imaginable, came out on stage to talk about his time with Lucasfilm as well. And we had Matthew Wood, the voice of the Battle Droids and General Grievous, prominent figure at the top of Skywalker Sound, who also came out to talk about his career, how George Lucas himself said that sound is 50% of the movie. And it's so true. I mean, when you're designing a universe like a galaxy far, far away, it comes to life with sound. I mean, if you tried watching Star Wars on mute, it's not the same. It's not the same. The Doug Chiang designing Obi-Wan Kenobi and the Mandalorian panel was something to behold. At 3 hours and 44 minutes into the live stream, we saw concept designs from both shows, along with a staggering number of, it almost came close to 9,000 or 10,000 concepts were done up for all of those episodes. Between Kenobi and Mando Season 3, it's unbelievable how many they would have had to have pumped out. I have a few that I posted in the Discord, which were just absolutely nuts. There was this really cool idea for a massive Dianoga to show up in Obi-Wan, but, again, an idea that they pitched to the script writers and ended up not coming out, ended up not being a thing, but it's interesting. It's fun to see the concept designers just kind of go nuts a little bit, and, a bit like Star Wars Visions. It's cool to see what could have been if things went in a different direction. The authors of Star Wars Timelines came out to the celebration stage, and this is a book I'm actually really looking forward to. What it's doing is it's basically taking elements of the old EU Star Wars Atlas, and it's kind of making something similar, but more or less along the lines of a book in which you can just pick up and read someone's storyline or a storyline of events in chronological order, of course, through the course of the book, and it's a very visual book. We're not talking about a book in a lot of text. Lots of maps and pictures in this thing, and the release date of this is going to be on April 25th, and in the US, and April 27th in the UK. I think people were also able to pick up a copy at Celebration this year. So, people who attended Celebration in person would have been able to score a copy of this already. So you might see photos and such popping up online very soon. So if this is something that interests you, you might be able to find some sneak previews in the coming days. The Timelines covers from the time before the High Republic all the way to the fall of the First Order. So I don't think we're going to see anything in regards to the new era's films with the Dawn of the Jedi and the New Jedi Order timelines, of course, because the movies haven't been done yet. But I could totally see an updated version of this book happening in another 7 to 10 years, in which we have just more content added onto it. I both love and hate books like this just because their usefulness only goes for so long before they don't tend to cover the new content that comes out on such a regular basis. You know, when you work yourself down to the comic books and just about everything, which is what this book is trying to do, it really gets out of date fast. So we had other guests join the celebration stage, which was really interesting to see. Dark Horse's very own Nick and I didn't catch the last name, and Matt Dreyer came to the stage to talk about hyperspace stories and a new line from Hyperspace Stories, or a new issue at least, is going to be featuring Quinlan Voss and Cad Bane. So I think with the Hyperspace Stories, they've been jumping around all over the saga. It's kind of telling little tales here and there in comic book form. So if you're a fan of Dark Horse comics and you missed the old school days where Star Wars was being published under the Dark Horse label, you might enjoy Dark Horse's Hyperspace Stories. So make sure you go check that out, because I think it would mean a lot to them. So Europe 2023 Star Wars Celebration closed today with the closing ceremonies close to the end of the day, of course, the end of the live stream. I think it ran for 5.5 hours, the entire live stream. And they did some recaps of the weekend. And anything that I potentially missed doing these daily recaps, of course. So one thing I probably didn't mention is that Jude Law was there, who also showed up with the cast of Skeleton Crew, which, mind you, are quite young kids. We're talking like Little Annie kind of age. So, this is definitely going to be a live action show geared for, I think, younger audiences for sure. Not quite as young as the Young Jedi Adventures, but pretty young. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to see what they do with it. And that show is going to be coming out, I believe, next year. So the crowd was absolutely nuts in this final, celebration ceremony. I mean, it's unreal to see all those lightsabers waving around and the smoke and the light. It's crazy. The hype in that room is unreal. And everyone is at a different live stage, so they were flipping between all of them, and each stage gave a bit of a recap on all the different panels they hosted over the weekend, because my recaps only cover most of the main stuff, the official stuff. But they had so many great panels that had guests from across the board. I mean, they had the Hasbro panel. I believe they had a comics panel and a Dark Horse panel, and not to mention all of the Lucasfilm approved fan panels that happened as well. I mean, it's worth noting so much more happened this weekend than the stuff that we talked about. But right here on Star Wars Escape Pod, of course, you get all the official headlines and news. But naturally, I mean, the entire weekend was packed. And the only way to celebrate Star Wars Celebration in the best proper way possible is really just to go in person. So you might be wondering, when is the next Star Wars Celebration happening? Because you might want to go. Well, turns out Star Wars Celebration will come back in 2025, April 18th to the 20th, 2025 in Japan. That's right. So if you're big on going back to Japan at some point, if you've never been, maybe it's going to be your first time, you can catch Star Wars Celebration in April between the 18th and 20th. And that's kind of an interesting set of dates, because it's only 3 days as opposed to 4. But because it's in Japan, I suspect that they're probably not going to be talking about as much stuff. Maybe there's going to be less announcements to make. I mean, this past celebration, they announced the 3 films coming out down the road. I know there's a big Disney slowdown happening. So I imagine as far as announcements and big news goes, they expect a bit of a smaller turnout, but who knows? I mean, it could be huge. It could be absolutely massive. But that's just my speculation, because for the longest time, it's hopped back and forth between Europe and the US for so long. I think there was one maybe in Japan at one point. I'm just blanking. I mean, this past celebration, this past weekend was the 15th one that they had. So they've had a bit. But that's it, folks. That's all. We're going to be doing another podcast later today for Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 6. Episode 6. We only have 2 more weeks of Mandalorian before Season 3 comes to a close. And now we also know that Bad Batch Season 2 was our penultimate season as well. So that's kind of interesting news. But yeah, we'll see you very shortly. Hopefully you enjoyed the celebration recaps. Make sure you stay tuned to the Twitter at SW Escape Podcast. Join the Discord in the link in the description below. and follow us on the YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube with the handle at SWSK Podcast as well. We also have an Instagram account. It's used less frequently, but you can still catch highlights of the show on there, just like you can on the Discord with the Snipped channel where we post highlights in a very special channel in the Discord. So may the force be with you guys. We'll see you all later in the next Mando review and a full-length podcast episode. And this is it for Star Wars Celebration Weekend. May the force be with you guys, and we'll see you in the next one.